Good afternoon, everyone. We are live. We have started. We're just waiting for everybody to sign in, as it takes a couple of minutes before all the participants are able to sign in as a whole. So I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes before I welcome my guest today, and then we can start the webinar. In the meantime, certainly for those of you who are already here, thank you very much for being here and listening to our Career Development Center Director, Julia de Vargas, talk about career changers. I think that's it. I don't see any more movement there on the participant list, so we'll begin. Julia, thank you so much for being here again on our live chat about careers. And today, we'll try and focus a little bit on those MBAs that those participants who want to change careers. But before we get onto the theme, can you tell us a little bit about the Career Development Center? What does it do, and why have we changed the name?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for inviting me. I will hopefully not repeat myself too much from the last session that we had. But yes, so I would say it'll be a little bit of repeat what I'm starting with, because it's true that I like to explain why we've changed, and now it's been a couple of years, from career services to career development. And for us, it's important because career services it already starts in the mindset of all of us and of participants of this is a service that will, whatever I learn, whatever I'm taught, whatever insights I get will be only for this year. And for us, it's really, it goes beyond the this year and the immediate post IMD MBA job that you might get. The workshops, so we have a career development stream, and that's made up of classes, sessions with experts, external people that come in on covering several different topics, anything and everything from elevator pitch, your LinkedIn, your CV, to salary negotiations, which we had this morning with the class. And those are topics that you'll be able to use and go back to the information you gather throughout your career. So for us, it's important. It's a career development, and just by starting with that, we see that MBAs are able to see it goes beyond just these insights are useful for me, not just for my immediate, but my midterm and longer term. So for us, that is key. It's hopefully, like everything you're learning here, it's not just a one-time thing. You'll develop with it. You'll find it useful as the months, the years go by after you leave IMD. So for us, that was one key thing. Now to touch on the career development stream, it's as I've mentioned. So we have classes, courses that are under career development. So our team leads them. We bring in experts, but they're in the academic schedule. So this morning we spent from 9:30 in the morning till 12 with the MBA class. Tomorrow we have another session from 8 to 12. They're part of the schedule. It's not a late in the evening or a Saturday. Again, because I think that we have recognized that these sessions and these workshops and these topics are as important as maybe other academic topics. And so we want to give it the importance that they should have.
Okay, thank you. So that was just as an introduction, because we're running this webinar today as part of a Career Insider series. Remember the last time I interviewed, which was actually on the 11th of July, so exactly a month ago, where we had the Career Insider series, and it was followed by alumni panels on certain industry focus. Now, this week, we have on Thursday another alumni panel where we'll be talking about talking with two alumni who've made career switches and how they've done it. That will take place on Thursday evening. So for those of you who are interested, please make sure that you sign up for that as well. Before we talk to them, Julia, what do you have, what do we have, what does the Career Development Center have in place for those MBAs that want to change in their career?
I think for me, it's the way I see it is when you decide to do an MBA, whether it's IMD or anywhere, but MBA, I would say at IMD, it's that you're trying to change something. So you've decided, because again, our MBAs are candidates, participants that are flying high in their careers. They have been recruited, they have been promoted, they have been headhunted, but they've decided in their particular time of this time to leave that and to go and get an MBA. Why is that? They're looking to either, of course, the self-awareness and everything, but they're also looking to change something. Change something. Are they looking to change their function, their sector, their geography, or all three? Many of them are looking to do that. So for me and for us, I think for our team, if you've come to an MBA, to do an MBA, you're looking to change at least one factor, one of those elements. So in a way, all of the 90 MBAs are looking for a career change, whether it's the sector, the geography, or the actual function company. So for me, that's how I would say. We see this encompasses the entire class. It's not a part of the class. It's not, we're dealing with career changers in a different way, or we're offering them a different set of workshops. It encompasses the whole class.
So then so if I want to change one or the three dimensions, what would you advise me? Like, how would you guide me through the process of what it is that I'm looking for? Because as you said, I've come to the MBA, I'm looking to change something. There's a fire inside that needs feeding. Of course, I have all the academic part that will help me fill some of the gaps that I have. There will be all the networking, the being exposed to so many different speakers and situations and activities that we've got in the program. But what is it that how can I say it? What is it that I will have to do under the career development stream so that I can get the change that I'm looking for?
Sorry, I'm having some technical issues. That's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I can hardly hear you, but if you can hear me, then that's the important thing. So for me, I think it starts with self-awareness. And this is why we start working with the MBAs already in October before they actually get here. Because again, yes, you know why you're leaving the security of your job, of your comfort zone, if you want. But at times you really don't know why exactly. So it starts with the self-awareness. What is it that you want to change? But fundamentally having the understanding of why is it that you want to change? What is it and why do you want to change it? Then how you go about it, that's the strategy. But I think the most important, the fundamental thing, and this is where it takes probably more time and more courage, because you have to be extremely honest with yourself in evaluating also how feasible is it, but first we start with, don't think about it. Is it feasible? Is it not feasible? Think about your motivators, because for us, and I'll take it to the recruiter side, for us, the recruiters tell us time after time. 15 minutes ago, I had a call with a recruiter. Many things they can teach them, motivation they cannot. So the first thing to figure out is why. I know that there's this fire that you were talking about. What is it? What exactly is that fire about? And where do I want to take my career, my life after the MBA? And so that's the part that probably takes the longest. And we encourage you to do that. Start those conversations with yourself, with your partner, with your family. And then once you get to that, once you have an idea, then when you come to IMD, then of course, by being with your classmates, by having your sessions with your analysts, by the courses you're having with the professors, by the different speakers that we're bringing you in, the different events that we organize with the alum, then that helps you in guiding you in your own path. And I think that that's what's important. It's the 90 MBAs, you each have a different path that you want to follow, and at a certain point it might get tempted to follow others' paths, but I think it's fundamentally trying to get you to work on the understanding of what is it that I want to change and why. Then the how, that's the process. And for us, we're here and the people that work with us, externals, internals, we're here to, as soundboards, we're here to also to run ideas, to brainstorm with us. Because again, if we just do it individually, then we might only see one part of it. And it's like anything, you want to get perspectives from different people. So again, do we have the answers? No, we don't have the answers, but hopefully from the experience from what we've seen in the past, we can guide you and say, well, have you considered this? Or you're saying that this is the path you want to take, yet on the other hand, you're saying this, you know, again, it could be that it's compatible, but maybe you haven't thought about it from that angle.
Yeah. So really, in itself, it kind of changes, it shifts a little bit. The focus shifts a little bit. It's not I'm coming to IMD or I'm doing an MBA because I want to change function and geography. It's I'm actually coming because I have this idea that I'd like to change function and geography. And then once they're put through the process, once they go through what you say, for me, the word development has a movement to it. So once you're put through this development, it might even be that in the end you don't change anything, or you know, instead of changing all 3 dimensions, you end up changing one of them. Once you start going back to re-questioning your initial idea. So really, it's that process that happens in the career development stream. So it's coming in with a fixed idea is also something that could stop you from actually getting to understanding what feeds your fire, which gives you then the next step in your career. That's what the focus is on.
Absolutely.
And that's where you said also, sorry to interrupt you there, that you pick up, because this could be something that could serve you in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time. So this way of approaching your career steps, whether it's immediate post MBA or in 5 years and 10 years' time, is actually something that you teach for an MBA participant to then take away and then use it later on when it becomes necessary again, possibly.
Absolutely. I think it's the idea of we encourage them to be curious, to be open-minded, and I think that is throughout. And what you were mentioning about, for me, when I hear an MBA saying, I know exactly at the beginning of the year or before the year starts, I know exactly what I want to do and I want to do it this way. That's a little bit scarier than somebody that tells me I'm at a loss. I have no idea, because again, that somebody that tells me I know exactly where I want to go and how I'm going to get there, they're probably going to be less curious, less open. So again, but we work with you as an individual. You might tell me, I know exactly, or tell us, I know exactly what I want to do, how I want to get about it. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Again, we're learning. We're here to also learn. But I think that it's exactly that, is encouraging them to whenever you gather new data, new information, to process that. And that will also change the way you see things, and maybe your perception and what you think you want right after your MBA. And we do see those changes. I see them as blossoming. You know, I see them as, you know, somebody that comes in with one idea, and it doesn't mean that they go away from that idea, but maybe they see that, well, actually, I thought that I would be doing this or this or that, but now again, they're growing as people. It's a transformational year for them. And for me, the way we work with them, we like to work with them is in a way of asking them, what do you want to do in 10 years' time? Well, I don't know.
So working backwards.
Working backwards. In order for you to get to be there in 10 years' time, where do you need to be in 5 years' time? And in order for you to be there in 5 years' time, where do you need to be immediately after your MBA? And I think for many of them, it's securing, because it doesn't mean there's this, I find that there's this misconception that, oh my God, if I take whatever job I take after my MBA, I'm going to be stuck with. No. And so if we work backwards, they see that it's a stepping stone towards something. You know, you're not going to immediately, most likely not, get a general management role immediately after your MBA. But if that's your goal, then again, specifically to you, Marcella, or to you, this person, what is it that you have to learn in order for you to have that? What experiences do you need to go through in order to be there in 10 years' time?
Yeah, so basically you're also opening up the scope in a way by projecting them 10 years in 10 years and 5 years. You're not really limiting that view of, I need to get this job on the 9th of December and it has to be that one. You're sort of expanding the vision scope so that it ends up being what makes sense, rather than what it is that I want and I want it now. You know, what makes sense in the long term. So basically you guide them and help them also to see the longer vision. And I just wanted to pick up on something that you said. You said to be open and curious. So even if I come in with the idea of, you know, I want this position, or I want to enter into consulting, or whatever it is, because that's what I think it's best, there's no right or wrong in terms of the profile that we see. It's just whether you can use this year and your team as sounding boards to check in that for you and where you want to go in the long term. For me, I wanted to pick up on a couple of sort of tips. You know, one of them is openness, being open and curious. What else is it then that would help me transition into my next position? And I won't talk about my change, but my next position that makes sense for me.
I think for me, the key, and maybe it's not answering your question, but for me, a key thing is, and I encourage the MBAs to do this. And when I speak to recruiters, this is what I tell them, we encourage the MBAs to do, is we encourage MBAs to make informational choices. So whatever choice you make, whatever decision, you're doing it based on information you have, informed choices. So again, if after debating and exploring and researching X, Y, Z, you decide on this, then that's fine. It's an informed decision. And I think it's what you were saying, we encourage them. Again, there is no right or wrong. Absolutely. For me, as long as this concept of informed decisions, informed choices is ingrained in their mind a little bit, then that's great, because this will be in your personal life, in your professional life, right after IMD, 5 years after, 10 years. And when I have discussions with alum from 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago, I think we go back to those same basics, you know, the motivation, and also right or wrong. Okay, you have your hypothesis, you have your thoughts. Now test them out and then make informed decisions. And once you've made that informed decision, there will probably be less likelihood that you're going to be, you know, resentful of I should have done this, because again, second guessing doesn't help anyone. But if you've made an informed decision, there'll probably be less likely that you say, oh, I didn't make the right decision, because you'll know why you made the decision. And the same thing with a career.
Okay.
If you know why you're going and why you're taking X job and not X job, you know that it's because it's a stepping stone to this and not to that. And that will help you with making decisions, and then with living with those decisions. Because again, the more choices you have, then also you have to take the personal accountability of, do I choose A or B? If you know why you're choosing A, then you're okay with letting go of B.
We're having some technical issues. Can you hear it? Can you hear it?
Yes.
You just froze for a bit. You froze for a bit. Informed choices. Just the last bit. We missed the last bit.
So the informed choices, I was saying, if you make an informed choice, then probably, most likely, if you choose A over B, then you won't have, or you'll have less regrets of letting go, or it'll be easier for you to let go of B, because you've known, you've made the informed choice of going for A.
Okay. So can you explain a little bit, can you explain a little bit, so what would I do, you know, as you know, you said that the career development stream is inbuilt into the program. So there's certain courses, as it were, in career development courses, just for want of a better word. What do I do? How do I follow the career development? What does your team look for from me, so that we can work together in order for me then to have a wider choice, to soundboard what I think that I want, to maybe I don't know what I want, and so to kind of refine my choice, and then eventually to get that job in the end?
So I think it starts with exactly that. It's the sessions, the workshops, the courses that we have for the class. They're for the entire class. Then you individually take whatever it is that you want to take from those, and then you tailor your job search. So for you, Marcella, you've heard, you know, the guest speakers, you've heard the companies that have come to present, you've had, you know, discussions with alum, with your classmates. Now you individually say, okay, this is my plan A, my plan B, and my plan C. And these are the reasons why I think that I want to pursue that. Then once you have that, the more tailored you have it, the more concise you have it, then hopefully the better we can guide you. Again, I always say this, and it's the alum, if any alum are hearing, it's the same thing. It's, you know, help us. The more informed you can keep us, then hopefully the better target approach we can take with you. Help us help you. And it goes the same when you're interviewing with companies. Help the companies hire you. So for us is exactly, so it goes from being in the auditorium to individual one-on-one meetings. And again, those individual one-on-one meetings are very, very different from one MBA to another. I can be speaking with an MBA who says, I'm still completely lost. Okay, so tell me about, what do you like to do? You know, if you're saying career-wise, I don't know. Let's talk about what you enjoy doing, what you're good at. And sometimes those are not the same things, huh? But those can give you some hints. What kind of magazines do you read at an airport? Or maybe now you're not traveling a lot, but you know, on your free time, what is it that you enjoy doing? You know, trying to tie in your passion with actually what you can do as a career. That can be one. It can be, you know, I've met with somebody who now has told me, this is my plan A, my plan B, my plan C. In my plan A bucket, I have, it's in these sectors and it's in these companies. Then from that, we can work on, you know, maybe we can introduce you to specific companies, to specific alum, to specific HR people. Maybe we can look at, you know, somebody else can say, I found these on LinkedIn, these open roles. Can we have a discussion on that? And then we go through them and we can say, okay, so this is what they're asking for, this is what you have, but talk to me about the motivation you had behind that. And that's why every individual meeting can be very different, because everyone's different at different stages in their career job search journey. Because for us, it's a journey.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing a lot is what I would term preparation. You know, a lot of reflection time. You know, you've mentioned self-awareness, which is also part of the program in itself. But within your stream as well, it has to come in. Again, looking back within the motivation, looking through, you know, what are my interests? How can I mind it? So before I even go out and write a motivational letter, I need to actually go and dig deep as to what where that motivation comes from, what that motivation actually looks like. So there's a lot of preparation, and you do that up front at the beginning. How is it placed in the year, you know, cycle?
So we do that again. We do that with the pre-program. Then we do that when they're here. And I would say today was the salary negotiation session is probably one of the last ones, because we've done preparing in January, February, March, April, May, and then preparation also in terms of networking. You know, how do I network? How do I reach out in these times now, reaching out virtually and so forth. And then what we do is already in May, we have an HR panel that we start gently introducing the MBA class to these HR panelists. And then in June, that's when we say, okay, now you have your, normally at this stage, you should have your CV, you should have your elevator pitch, you should have the concepts of a cover letter, you should have your concepts of networking. Now we can formally introduce you to potential recruiters, which is what we do through company presentations in June, and then this Thursday and Friday. Because then once you have that, that's the actual interaction. What, you know, you're actually interacting. Those are first impressions with potential recruiters, potential employers. So you have to be ready. Again, if we were to introduce you to them in February, you don't have your CV, you still don't have that self-awareness, you don't have that elevator pitch. If they say, oh, great, Marcella, send me your CV. Or again, you might not you don't have a more concise idea of what you want. So.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. What if I want to reach out to somebody in February? Because, you know, I know what I'm doing, I know what I want. Then your advice would be actually still follow this process of gathering also your not your tools of the trade, but your materials that you need, you know, your CV, your elevator pitch, your interviewing technique. You need to have those ready, you know, your portfolio ready, as it were. And so taking your time until June to get that ready gives you really the advantage that come June, you know exactly what you're saying, you know exactly what you're looking for, and you're also targeting the right people, whether it's alums, speakers, or companies that come in to present. And that I think is also what I gather. Spend time doing your preparation. You talked about being open and curious. I would add, spend a lot of time in doing your preparation before you run with it, before you even approach anyone. Make sure that you're clear as to how you present yourself, what it is that motivates you, what it is that you're looking for, why you're reaching out to a certain person instead of another one, and so forth. Just a quick housekeeping. I want to encourage you all to ask Julia questions. If you do have any, there's a Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. Please don't use the chat because it's quite confusing to manage for me, whereas the Q&A kind of pops up the window, and so I know which questions are coming in. So by all means, do take this opportunity to ask Julia any questions or on something that we haven't covered. Right.
I think, Marcella, just going back to what we were discussing, I think that, again, people forget that there's only one time for a first impression. No, you don't have a second chance at a first impression. So, of course, if somebody comes, it's not like we keep people from reaching out earlier on, but we encourage them to come speak with us and to see, you know, who is it that you're trying to reach and why. And then if you think you're ready, and, you know, run it through us. Give me your pitch, or, you know, ask me what you would be asking. And a lot of times you have people that they're ready to do this in I would say April, late March, April, maybe May. But most of them understand that, oh, you're right, you know, first impressions are important, and you can never take that back. You know, if you come across to an alum, to an alumnus, to a recruiter, or to anyone in your network as just reaching out, and what's important is also, you don't want to come across as a taker. I just want to take without giving back. And in order for you to give back, you need to know what you're looking for, but you also need to do the research on, if I'm reaching out to Marcella, who is Marcella? What could be of interest to Marcella, so that she doesn't feel like I'm just being taken advantage of. And that takes time, like you said. So, but again, we don't stick to these strict rules. Nobody contacts anybody before June. Absolutely not. Recruiters, yes, then what we say is we organize these presentations in June, because it's the appropriate time where we think the toolkit that you were mentioning, their portfolio is ready.
Yeah, okay. And so where are we at this week? What's happening this week? And is this in, you know, since we have the lockdown and we've had to reschedule, is this in line with the usual timings? How are things today?
It's completely in line with the timing, because what we've done, actually, we've moved some sessions to earlier in the year when the COVID and the confinement started. Then we knew that the recruitment processes would not be the same. One thing being, and it's proven right, is that most of the first round and up to the final rounds will probably all be through Zoom, so virtually. So we brought in a lot more sessions, a lot more workshops, a lot more simulations early in April and in May to do that. In terms of our recruiting activities, absolutely. We have 2 days in June, which we've had, 2 days in August, which we're having this Thursday and Friday. And actually we start with the August presentations this evening, because we've run out of time slots on Thursday and Friday. And we start with that. So this is where a group of companies will present. This is who we are beyond what you can find on the website. These are the challenges, not only COVID, but just in general, also the opportunities. And these are the profiles we're looking to hire, if we're looking to hire for talent, or if we're looking to hire for specific open roles. And then normally what we ask is, at the end of the presentation, the next steps. If I'm interested in applying to IMD or whatever it is the company that's presenting, how do I go about it? Is it through their website? Is it through IMD's career development? Is it for a specific role? And then also, will the first round take place in September? We have 2 weeks in September for that. And to give them an idea of the time limit of the process. So for us, the timing is following in a normal year, if you like. And it's going to be on Friday. On Thursday, we start at 9 and we finish at 6 p.m. I believe. On Friday, we start at 9 and we finish at 9 p.m. 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. because again, we have global companies, and the last company presenting is in Latin America, based in Latin America. So we accommodate for that. So it'll be a very nice way to end our presentations for 2020, to end it with a late session.
So this is what
from 7 to 9.
Yeah, this is what has changed actually, the sort of the later session, because now it's a Zoom one. So you've been able to bring in this company from Latin America in the right timing. Whereas if they had had to fly in, sorry, perhaps it wouldn't have happened. Is that, have you found that?
Absolutely, it's exactly that. It's we're finding that even the companies that were coming to IMD physically from Europe, now they are not limited to bringing in their European teams. Now we can expand it. And this company from Latin America, interestingly enough, their global team is interested, but in Europe, their recruiting team in Europe is still not back in the office. So we'll do that in September. But it's allowed for that. It's allowed for really for us to concretely see the globalization of teams and companies to bring in, you know, teams from different parts of the world, which again, with a group of MBAs so mobile and coming from so many different countries, 37 nationalities in this year's class, looking for global opportunities. And this is great because they're able to make that introduction and the first meeting, if you want, with teams from diverse places, and really then the connection is then a little bit easier. Or at least the breaking of the ice is done through these presentations. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We're having some questions come in, so perhaps, Julia, if you don't mind, I'll introduce a couple of questions, and it could also be opportunities for us to carry on the conversation. So I have a question from Sarah. Hello, Sarah from Boston in the US. I've heard the sentiment to not do an MBA primarily for a geography change. From my perspective, I want to make a strategic move to Europe and continue my career onward and upward. And I think an MBA program could be a great transition. Can you talk a little bit more about supporting geography changes via the MBA? So I think I'll just sort of guide you back, Julia, to what you were saying, and then ask you to expand. In a way, it's almost not important exactly what the change is to understand that this change is what really fits for your profile. So what would you do with Sarah? What would you, how would you work with Sarah?
I think for us, it's really that. It's okay, trying to understand where, and so for somebody coming, first of all, hi, Sarah, somebody coming from Boston, you know, why is it, if you're telling me I'm coming from Boston to IMD because I want to explore opportunities in Europe, that's normal for me. That's a normal. If you were to tell me I'm coming from Boston to IMD and I want to go back to Boston, then I would say, okay, then I would have to be honest and say, we do have alum, we do have some connections, but again, our strong point is in Europe. So for me, in that way, what I would say is, you know, if you're coming, and most of the MBAs that come to IMD, of course, they come for the personal development, they come for the leadership, but if they have in their radar, I'm coming also because I want to explore opportunities in Europe, that's kind of the norm, because that is where we have that's where we are based. And again, Europe for us, it's, I like that you say Europe, because Europe is beyond, you know, Switzerland. We're in Switzerland, but you know, what we see, and this morning in the session we had, our external said, you know, there's opportunities. It's getting, you know, it's getting where opportunities in Europe is, before it used to be, you're based in Switzerland. So if I come to IMD, I'm interested in Switzerland only. Look beyond that. There's Germany, there's the Nordics, you know, there's Copenhagen in Denmark, there's Oslo in Norway, there's Sweden. They are also, they're looking for people, they're looking for great talents. And I think in that respect, the advice that was given this morning is take into consideration the size of the country, the sector that they're strong in, and then, you know, the companies that are there. And then you track that back to your interest. If I'm interested in this sector, in this company, which are the strategic geographies that I should be looking at? And for me, the advice is always, if you're saying Europe and you're open, then don't just look at one country. Be open. And then again, for us, it's always plant your seeds. Plant your seeds, because it takes time for things to develop. Don't wait until one opportunity, one window is close to open another one. Sarah, if you're saying Europe, you know, maybe you have Switzerland. Okay, try Switzerland, Denmark, France, whichever. And then so for me, that's the way I would answer.
And then I guess you'd also add the time dimension. So where would Sarah have to be post MBA in order in 5 years time and 10 years time to be where she wants to be. So it could actually be that the first year post MBA, what makes more sense is a specific job opportunity that is in Boston again for a year, because after that, the next step actually would take her to Sweden through that company, for example. So you'd widen the time dimension as well.
Exactly. And I would say there that exactly the recruiters, the companies that recruit from IMD, for the most part, they're global recruiters. So exactly, I mean, for me, it's if the opportunity is the only opportunity with a company that you have found the match, your personal connection, your values are connected to them, and the only opportunity they have is for you to go back to Boston, that's okay. Because again, you're joining a company that's global. No company will keep you somewhere where you're not happy or where you're adding less value. So it might be that you have to go back home, wherever home might be. But then if it's a global company, they will take that into account. Also now I'll go into the COVID. With COVID, now companies are working across geographies virtually. This also is giving people opportunities. I spoke to a recruiter this morning who was telling me that now this is really proof for people in certain organizations that thought, oh, it could never work. We can't hire Marcella in Italy if we want her to work with our Swiss team. This has proven that yes, in fact, that's how, that's probably how a lot of companies are going to work. And the recruiter was giving me the example of somebody that they hired in the Middle East, and the person started in the Middle East and actually started in the Middle East the 1st of July and has only now joined the Swiss team, but has always been part of that. So for me, it's those opportunities. Look at the overall, the global. Is it a company that my values are in line with, that I'm interested in, that I'm passionate about? And is it a global company? Because then the opportunities will be there. Yeah.
Okay. I hope, Sarah, that was a good answer for you.
A bit long, sorry.
Yeah, a bit long, exactly. But I think we've got a lot of little snips there of information. I hope we also managed to answer Pedro from Portugal, who was asking how has COVID impacted MBA recruitment? So do you feel that companies are more reluctant about hiring MBAs, or perhaps even more interested in hiring them? What are the key recommendations to a successful remote recruiting? So you touched on that with your example about the Dubai, or I can't remember, was it Dubai or Saudi Arabia? Yeah, Dubai, and then they moved into the Swiss team. So can you just add a couple more bits? Do you find that it's more difficult this year, less difficult?
It's for us, I would say it's too early, because what I'm about to say might seem a bit too optimistic. But again, what I was mentioning is we've run out of time slots for presentations. So we've had actually in June and August, we've had more interest, more companies interested in presenting to our MBAs, interested in sharing with our MBAs about their recruitment. Now, the two aspects that I would agree that definitely have changed is the processes might be a bit longer, because now some companies need more time to actually find more clarity in terms of their recruitment. What are the open roles that we're able to recruit for? And the other thing would be that that most of the interviews, what I've mentioned, will be virtual. So that's a big turning point for, I think, for any MBA, because again, in general, most of us don't really like this virtual to start with, yet alone interviews. And now it seems like it will likely be like that for first, and then some companies throughout even the whole process.
Okay.
And in fact, the company that I spoke to this morning said that they hired somebody who actually never had a face-to-face interview. He never visited the person, the people that, he met the teams like this, he met the company, but a physical visit was not possible because of COVID. And while I think those are the adjustments that we'll have to make. But overall, it's again, we'll have to see now the second set of presentations, then the application deadlines, and then the selection, first round interviews, and so forth. But for us, we've not seen a decrease. On the contrary, we've seen an increase in interest from companies across sectors. Again, the tech sector the companies we work with have told us they'll probably need to hire more people than they thought. Again, technology, the healthcare and life sciences also, again, now defining, and then the consulting firms have told us that they will probably find themselves in more demand. Because organizations have to look at and maybe reorganize, and they'll bring them in. So again, it'll be very interesting to see what this turns out to be. But for the time being, I don't think that I would say definitely less or definitely more. I think for now I'm comfortable in saying it seems positive, and then we'll have to see step by step.
Okay. We have another question. Thank you, Marcel and Julia, for having this informative session. My area of concern is age and trying to get a job in a management consultancy firm. Hence, if I'm 32, 33 years old while doing the MBA at IMD, from your experience, is this an issue to get a job in the big three management consulting firms, BCG, McKinsey, and Bain?
I love this question. I love this question because I have it, I'm asked even from current MBAs. And my answer is, years ago, when I started this, and even my career, but even a few, I would say it's changed in the last 5-7 years. Before, exactly, there were the people that were going into consulting firms, the MBAs, were the younger ones, because perhaps they wanted the name brand, but also they were not too sure of exactly what sector they wanted to go into. So going into consulting gave them a few more years to kind of figure out, test different sectors and so forth. Nowadays, I think that yes, we still have people like that. But you also have, a couple of years ago, you had people that came to do an MBA because they came from the energy sector and wanted to go back to the energy sector, but the energy sector wasn't really hiring. So where can I hedge a few years? Let me go to consulting firm. That's fine. We still have those. But now add to that people that have said, well, actually, it's for all those reasons, or maybe one or two, but it's also because what we're noticing is that an experience at a consulting firm, top consulting firm, MBB perhaps, is also sought after by companies across sectors. So if, and one that's very specific and difficult to get into, private equity. Private equity is close to impossible. I mean, you just don't go into private equity. There's no recruitment cycle or timeline. But many of those firms, if you've done a couple of years at one of the consulting firms, then your application is a bit more appealing, and that is happening across sectors as well, in the retail, in technology, and so forth. So now you have that. And in terms of the age, I would say it's not, and this is what I'm hearing from the recruiting companies, the consulting firms. For the consulting firms, it's not an issue. It's more in an individual. And that's where we go to self-awareness. So what consulting firms are saying is, for them, it's not an issue as long as it's not an issue for you, the individual. So you will be led, if you're 31, 32, or 33, and you're okay with your project lead to be 26 or 27, truly okay with it, then that's fine. Now, again, I have cases. I had an MBA last year who said, with my years of experience, with my age, I would not feel comfortable. Great. It's great for you to know that. So for me, I have not seen that. And a couple of years ago, we did look into it. The age, is there an age where there's less people being hired? Honestly, no. Because again, in the interviews and be truthful to yourself, but that will come across. If you're the kind of person that you say, I'm sorry, but at my level, at my age, I just could not, then that's fine. And that's if you're able to explain it. Maybe if you're a little bit older, I don't know, 34, 35, we've still seen that, but you're able to really communicate and share that with the recruiter that feels that, actually, yes, it's for the learning. It's for, I want to go into consulting because I love the learning curve. I love working with people that are always challenging themselves. I love working in these project-based that, this time I can work on a project here, this sector, this company, and then the next project could be totally different. That's very different. So I would say that age, there is no top age, or you have to be, this young, or you can't be that old for that.
And this ties in with quite nicely with the next question from Shinpei from Tokyo. He he says that he asks, how does IMD's leadership education develop and change our career? And I think that's one basic element, the self-awareness, about asking yourself, what is it that you want out of, for example, if you're moving into consultancy and you are a certain age, can I truly work with somebody who's younger? Do I really truly like swapping and changing and working long hours and changing projects all the time, changing teams? Is that something that feeds my motivation? Is that something that makes me thrive? And I think the self-awareness that is a main component of the leadership stream is also something that you need, that you feed on, you know, that the Career Development Center needs to feed on in order to, again, streamline all your ideas, all the things that you think that make you tick, and in order to then go through this process so that you approach later on strategically, you approach the right people and the right companies and so forth. Is there another element in the leadership stream that you would add to that, or is there another thought that you would add to that?
No, I think you've covered it. And I think in general, you know, exactly. I mean, what recruiters say, they need leaders and in all situations, especially now. But that's exactly, and that's what we hear from recruiters in terms of what they give us the feedback that for them, and I mentioned it yesterday on a session, so excuse me if you weren't attending that session, but that it becomes very obvious and evident for them when they're organizing assessment centers, and there's certain questions and there's certain manners and ways that our MBAs from IMD, it comes across that they've spent a lot of time in knowing themselves, the self-awareness, and also in knowing that, you know, there isn't one right or wrong way to lead. It really just depends. And they have that confidence without the arrogance of knowing when to say, I don't know it all. Again, because they know that, they've worked with that, and here that's what we work with them on. You know, we don't teach, there's not one way of leadership, there's not one way of management, there's not, you know, there's not one ethics. You know, it's really helping you understand how you are as a leader, how you're perceived as a leader, and then that comes into play how you interact. And so our recruiters do tell us they see that some of the externals that we work with, again, sometimes they work across geographies, and they say that they do see that, they do see it, they do feel it. And again, I think it's not just consciously but subconsciously. If you're aware, if you're more comfortable with feeling exactly, maybe I don't know this, but I do know this and that. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So somebody else was saying they would like to have a career in sustainability. You know, how do we help? I think that's, I don't necessarily want to answer something as specific as that, because I think we've covered it in terms of, it doesn't, again, if you know where you're going, if you know what companies are the ones that whose values are aligned with yours, if you've done your homework, if you've done the research, if you've looked into yourself, then whether it's sustainability or a particular function or a particular geography, I think then that's where it's important to also always come back to you. Of course, there's Natalia Milani, who is the other director in the Career Development Center, and just repeating, you know, both of you take half the class so that really you can offer that one-to-one follow through throughout the process of understanding what are the right companies, what are the right geographies, what is the next function that makes sense in order to then in 5 years and in 10 years time be where you want to be. I'm going to take the next question. This is Ko from Japan. Hello, Ko. Thank you for your valuable session today. I'd like to ask you if MBAs from Asian countries would have any disadvantages to get a job in Europe-based firms. And my other question is, what kind of responsibilities in the industrial sector are expected to be available for MBAs? Perhaps it's a little bit too specific. The second one, perhaps more Asian countries, do they have disadvantages to get a post in Europe or Europe-based firms?
Marcella?
Yeah.
Difficulty with the hearing.
Okay. Can you read the questions if you can't hear them? Can you read can you see them on the on the Q&A? See this one, the top one from Ko? Can you read that one?
Because what kind of responsibility in the industrial sector?
So perhaps the second one is a little bit too specific, but perhaps the first half of the question.
You know, for me to answer Cole's question, I would say it's really not, there's nothing specific of a specific nationality or anything like that. Really, what we always try to do is encourage you to always concentrate on what is it that you are bringing to that company, to that role. So it has little to do with the nationality. It really has to do with tying it to what is it that they're looking for? What would be your responsibilities? And on the contrary, what I would say is the last thing you want to highlight is that, I mean, they know from your CV, they know if I'm Mexican or what have you. What we hear all the time is they're looking to hire the best talent. And when they find the best talent, that's when they look at everything else, or they look at, what nationality and so forth. But I don't think we've come across, and this goes along the line with, the question I always get asked is, I have this profile. Do I have the right profile for this company? Or it really depends. It depends on is it an open role that they're hiring for? And then you tie it into your experience, or is it talent? And what do they define as talent? And then you go with that. And so honestly, I would say there's not a set answer for any nationality or any profile. Is it easier? I was having the discussion today. Sometimes we come across MBAs we work with MBAs that say, but I have the ideal profile for this role, and I was interviewed and I didn't get the offer, and yet my classmate or somebody else, then that becomes a question of what kind of rapport did you build with the recruiter? What kind of interactions did you have? Were you convincing enough? Were you able to sell your stories? And that's where it becomes really, I think, challenging, that there isn't a one answer. You cannot say, if you did, like for cases, how many cases do I need to do to be ready for a consulting interview? It really depends. So for us, we go back to the same thing. Repeating, self-awareness, preparation, really going back to that, and then tying your message to, I'm reading, I'm hearing that this is what you're looking for. This is what I'm bringing forward. That's the key to it. And I think that's what we ask people to spend time on, rather than numbers, or rather than, but for which companies do I have the right profile for?
That's not the right question.
No, and it can be frustrating, because you would love for us to be able to tell you that. We would love for to be able to tell you that, but we just can't. It's like, it really depends. And when I speak to recruiters, it really depends. But that's an answer that's, it's frustrating. So, yeah.
And I think we've also answered Yi's question with this. We have one last question I see, and then I think we can also wrap up our session. So this is from Nikhil, who is heading the retail sales and operations in India. He's 37 years old and asks if the recruiters are okay hiring someone with that age and 12 years of experience, and is age a deterrent? And he's a little confused at the moment and not sure, so he's asking for our guidance. But I just wanted to answer preliminarily from the program recruitment side, and just say that for us, when it's over 10 years experience, we look at profiles also with caution, because not just from the careers point of view, but also from the actual fit to the program. The program was designed for the 31 years of age average that we keep, and therefore with too much of a gap, and too much experience on the one side or too little experience on the other side, we want to make sure that the participants that we have in actually are able to get as much from the program as they bring in. So age could be also a factor in terms of fit for the program itself, and sometimes we then advise also to go to the executive programs, or look at the other programs that are available at IMD. And I guess, Julia, that also then ties in, the recruiters that come in also are looking at that 31 years of average age that we have in the class, and those types of positions. And perhaps if you're too senior, they might not be necessarily looking to hire in the hiring cycle at IMD. Would you agree? Would you add something?
I think it's, for me, I would agree with everything you've said. I think the only thing again, we go back to, it's how you tie your story. It's, you know, then what is your story? What is it that you want to get out of joining a company, and why? So again, here too, there is no ideal age. You know, as a recruiter going to look at me that I'm too young, we've had that. And it's really interesting because in the class, exactly the average, you know, 7 years of work experience. So when sometimes you have younger MBAs that say, yeah, but I don't have the experience that my classmates don't. We always say, don't compare yourself to anyone. Really, it's not about comparing yourself. It's about being able to concretely, concisely express what is it that you want to get out of joining a company. Again, because normally you're not joining a company for that one role. You're looking to build a career with them. But even if you have, you know, if you have 12 years of work experience, it depends. Again, then they're looking for leadership. Then they're looking for this and that. So it's interesting because it really depends on the shoes you're wearing. If you're a younger MBA, you might feel a little bit intimidated. I don't have the 12 years of experience that my classmate does. If you have 12 years of experience, you might feel like, well, maybe companies are going to look at me differently because maybe they find that I'm not as, you know, maybe that I'm too rigid or so forth. And those are the things that the more you know about yourself, the more you know how to position things. And again, you can't be prepared for every question they ask you, but if you know your story and you're able to share that with humility, with honesty, and that it makes sense, then again, age, they're looking for the best talent. Age, yes, it'll come into play perhaps. Again, then it depends. If it's a development program, then, you know, maybe you say this is not the right program for me. It's you that says that. Or maybe the company will say, listen, maybe instead of the development program, we would consider you for an open role. There's companies that have rotational programs that make sense for some of our MBAs and that don't for others. Huh? It's very individualized.
Mm-hmm. And so Nikhil, I hope that was a good answer for you, what you were looking for. We're running out of time, and I don't want to go over because otherwise it becomes too long a webinar. And I'm sure Julia will have you again for another Career Insider series, or perhaps Natalia this time later on in the year, so that she gets some airtime. I also want to remind you all to join us on Thursday evening at 6 o'clock CST, Central European Time, summertime, where we will have Adrian and Andrea, two alums who successfully managed their career change. And I'm sure they will repeat a lot of what Julia has said, you know, doing their homework, networking with the right people, knowing themselves, what motivates them, what led them to accept the positions that they went for. But this time they will be telling their story from their perspective. So you could find the sign-up sheet, the sign-up form on our events page. If you have any questions, anything that we haven't managed to answer, please write to me. I will answer you and then perhaps put you in touch with Julia, or I will ask Julia at mbainfo@imd.org. Julia, I want to thank you once again for being here. 1 month, different. I won't have you in September, the 5th of September, don't worry. And I wish you a great afternoon. I see you're at IMD. So, and it's, of course, it's the tough career week. So good luck with that, with all the company presentations, and have a great weekend when it does finally come for you to get some rest.
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you to everyone for listening to us. And exactly, I mean, if you can, join on Thursday. Both Adrian and Andrea are from last year's class. And that'll also give you a good feeling and a good flavor for the diversity of MBAs that come to IMD, and the diversity of roles that they go into. So it's very, very interesting. Say hello to Martella, say hello to them. And it's an exciting time right now. It's busy. It's a busy week, but you know, it's always nice. I'm looking forward to Friday starting at 9 and finishing at 9 p.m. because I'll also be able to say hello to a fellow alum who is now one of our recruiters in Latin America. So that's the beauty of it. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
And
very
exactly,
much,
if
Julia.
anybody has any questions, please send them to
Write
Marcella.
to us, absolutely. Thank you so much for attending the webinar, and see you. I also see maybe some of you at the next webinar next week, where we will be talking with Anna Farouz on admissions, as the last deadline for the 2021 class is coming up. So whatever it happens, have a lovely afternoon or evening wherever you are. Goodbye. Bye-bye, Julia. Thank you.
Bye.